Do you think we've done the intro bumper yet?
Oh, I think we've got it.
Okay, cool.
Well, the intro bumper. I don't. Sometimes those come late.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are from the very end. Yeah.
Yeah.
That ain't our beer. Where'd you get the slop?
This is Midnight Local, the podcast that Meredith and I do from our respective homes where we ostensibly talk about movies. And I think today we're actually going to have a lot to say about this movie. We're finally doing the pre-code stuff that I love so much.
Well, we've done some.
Yeah, but we did one. We did horror. We did 2 horror movies.
Yes, we did Island of Lost Souls, which is one of our best episodes performance-wise so far.
Much. Yeah,
it's that titillating thumbnail.
Ooh, so titillating. So pre-code horror is it's pre-code, but it's not like when people talk about pre-code movies, they are talking 90% about the movies made by First National Pictures / Warner Brothers. Like that is, yes, everybody was doing the pre-code stuff was like everywhere, but like we're talking about Warner Brothers, and we're finally doing the Warner pre-code movies, which are a beast all of themselves. And I feel like I'm not excited enough about this because we're doing Public Enemy. Actually, I always say Public Enemy, but it is The Public Enemy. Yeah, we're finally doing The Public Enemy, a movie I have seen 100 times. Let's exaggerate. Meredith, was this your first seeing?
This is my first time seeing it. And you reminded me that it played a pivotal role in one of my favorite things of all time that I'm so sad is gone, The Great Movie Ride.
Oh, yeah.
And that image of him standing by the door, sort of counting his money in that ride is just seared into my brain. And until you brought that up, I didn't make that connection. So now I feel like we need to go like movie by movie through The Great Movie Ride.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, right.
That's an awesome idea. Let's do that.
So last night I pulled it up and watched it all the way through from like right before it closed in 2023.
Did you do all the movies in the montage too? Because there's a bunch of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, I mean
it's a lot of movies. This would be a whole podcast, watching through The Great Movie Ride, because there's like at least 50 movies referenced in the montage.
There's a lot, yeah. I mean, they're all great.
You know what's crazy? I mean, we're so off topic immediately, but here's something crazy. My daughter is a voracious reader. Mm-hmm. She is 8. Okay. And she's always like, I need another book to read because I don't know, she's ADD or something, and like she can't sleep if she doesn't have a book. That's great.
Good for her.
It is great. And I was like, fine, you want a book to read? Fuck, fine. I give you. Not that I'm pro reading. I was just like, I sound like, oh, you nerd. I was like her when I was a kid. I read voraciously, but we just didn't have anything. And I went to the room where we keep the books. I was going to say the library, but that sounds really pretentious. We went
to the library,
the book room, which is currently being painted actually. Nice. And we have like a classics edition of the Wizard of Oz, and I said, here, try to read this. She fucking loved it.
Yeah.
And read it and like has very strong opinions on the film now. She's like, the book is so much better. The book is so much better. Yeah,
the story really captures people very intensely still.
She loves the way that the Tin Man was born and cut to pieces by himself, like accidentally. Like, I don't know if you know that. She just keeps telling me, Dad, it's so dark. It's dark. So dark.
It's much darker, yeah.
And also there's something I've never seen a film critic or film historian ever point out, but there's apparently a golden hat in the book that you need to wear to control the flying monkeys, and you can only use it 3 times. And there's a scene where the Wicked Witch of the West is like ripping something off of her desk or clearing her desk, and my daughter goes, there it is, there's the golden hat. They put it in the movie. I was just like, what the fuck?
That's so interesting. I've never heard that piece of trivia.
I know.
I've been around the Wizard of Oz a lot, as I've mentioned, because of Sean and
right.
Like, I have a friend who's a collector of Oz memorabilia and is in a circle of people who do this. And we used to take a trip once a year to a half-mile strip of yellow brick road on the top of a mountain and play the characters. And I spent years around. We did a documentary about it, which is on YouTube.
Oh, I didn't know
if
that.
You can find it.
She won't provide the links. You're on your own.
I'll provide a link. It was one of my college thesis films, so don't expect too much, but it's called Ozzest.
Ozzest. And I called her out, by the way. I want to point out, I was like, it's a black and white movie. How do you know that's the golden cap? Well, she got the book out and showed me the illustration of the cap, and I was like, oh, fuck, that's the golden
so
cap.
Cool. I never have come across that piece of trivia. I'm sure it's somewhere.
On screen for a half a second. Like, I don't know. She has sharp eyes.
I know. I hope that person's still alive. Someone out there is like, finally, someone saw it after all of these years.
Zero chance that person is still alive. Not
I know.
One chance.
But anyway, great movie ride. So and this poster, like, immediately recognizable because when you're coming out of that turn on the movie ride, it's huge.
Yeah.
And his face is just unforgettable.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately. Like, it was seared into my memory. And then your ride gets hijacked because of the gangsters, and you kind of get hijacked by a gangster from this movie or a similar one right after it. Yeah.
You can either get the cowboy or the gangster.
Or the gangster.
I always got the gangster. I feel like maybe I saw the cowboy once.
Yeah.
And then they die in Indiana Jones.
Correct. And you get your original guide back.
Yep.
Heroically returns.
Heroically. It was so good to have that guide. It was so great to see those third-year college program theater students. Now, actually, that's not true because college program, I don't think ever got that gig. I think that was like you had to have your theater degree and nothing to do with it to get that gig.
That and the Jungle Cruise both have scripts going through them.
Yes.
Okay, just the nuts and bolts. The Public Enemy, 1931, 1 hour, 24 minutes.
Yes.
Budget, $151,000, which would have made it a lower budget movie for this time. I looked it up. Budgets usually fell between 250 to like high 300,000s.
Yeah.
And it was the first low budget gangster film, or maybe even like just low budget film, to gross over $1 million. So huge success.
By that, and God, in many regards, it's probably the first gangster film, but go on.
So starring James Cagney, Jean Harlow, Edward Woods, Joan Blondell. There's a host of other people. Those are your kind of main four.
Edward Woods, not Ed Woods, the schlock director.
Edward Woods.
I just want to clarify for the audience because you might be jumping to conclusions if you're out there listening to or watching Midnight Local, wherever you get your podcasts.
And directed by William A. Wellman, which I didn't actually really dive into in this one because I got so hung up on Jean Harlow and James Cagney, but mostly Jean Harlow.
So full disclosure, I love Cagney so much that I advocated strongly to name our first daughter Cagney.
Oh, wow. Okay. I can understand why.
Come out and take it, you dirty yellow-bellied rat, or I'll give it to you through the door.
Did you love it?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely
thank you.
It. We're going to watch a couple of pre-codes back to back, and I had so much fun watching all of them. But there's so many things to love about this movie that go beyond the movie that are just like a feeling it gives you, sort of like a groundwork for things to come.
Yes.
You will recognize so much about modern movies all through film history in this movie, which is just like, I don't know, just hits like this nostalgic, some chord that I didn't expect.
Well, we can get right into that because, and I fully agree with him and many other people do as well, Scorsese calls this movie the invention of film acting. And there's reasons for that. It's for real. So prior to this movie, as far as anybody can tell, film acting was really very operatic, very theatrical, very, to the extent that we had talkies at all. We were only, 3 years into talkies?
Yeah, I was going to say we're very soon out of talkies.
Yeah, exactly.
Or out of silent films.
Well, and silent film actors were basically doing kabuki, right? Like they're doing huge, ridiculous, I mean, like just like extremely over the top because they had to convey so much silently.
Yes, I'll throw in a clip of Singing in the Rain here, even though that's not a silent film, but they really make a good caricature of it.
I think that you can take your pick too of actual
silent films,
and it can be done really effectively. Like if you look at Passion of Joan of Arc, I mean, like it's incredible.
Yes,
but it's ridiculous. If you really to take it out of the context of that world, it would be absurd. If you look at the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or any of the German Impressionist films, like it may as well be Wagner or something, you know, it's just like these huge, just like whatever.
Well, and they didn't have microphones strapped to them, and they weren't trying to, Then everyone went still for a while they were trying not to move away from their microphone or make noise.
And the camera had to be in the box, in the ice box, where it was in a whole separate room. And on top of that, like in Singing in the Rain, they do actually portray this accurately. A film stage would have 5 different movies shooting in different directions at once. You know, it wasn't until you have somebody trying to talk that became impossible. And now you had the sound stage that only had one movie happening in it. It was very expensive. This was a crazy idea. So the invention of modern film acting. Cagney, to your modern eye, and this may be because you are not inured to the time and place of the 1930s, of the Upper East Side, Yorkville neighborhood that Cagney grew up in, of the kind of patter of that dialogue, it might feel over the top, but this was shockingly cinema verite for the audiences that saw this at the time. It was shockingly convincing and real. Cagney struck people as not acting. This is a small performance. This is restrained. This is, I always, when I was directing at film school, and I had to you always got the theater actors who now have to work in front of camera because they were all theater school kids. You have to tell them that the audience isn't at the back of the house. It's sitting right in your lap, and you just need to whisper to them. Cagney is doing that. And he is speaking in the vernacular, and the speed and the slur and it's all kind of coming with his mouth is kind of closed and stuff like that. And he's not really presenting in a really big and clear way. And part of that was technology. The microphone technology had changed, right? Okay. So you read that in your notes?
I did. Yeah. But that's
about the recasting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a famous thing and everyone touches on it, but very few people explain why they were recast, which is so fascinating, and I think you're about to. So go ahead and finish up.
I mean, they had cast what was his name?
Edward
Wood and Jimmy Cagney to play the opposite characters.
Correct.
And then
started shooting that way, but to the point where it's like they cast the kids as lookalikes for these two, and they never switched it back.
They never switched the footage, right? Yeah. So I was like, the first time I watched it, I was like really confused, and I watched it in film and literature, I think, and we ended up had like our teacher stopped the movie. He was like, "Oh, you're right. Like I forgot to bring that up. Yeah, they are backwards." I was like, "Oh, okay." Because the kid, and I always forget his name, but he was a brilliant actor in his own right, who doesn't play Cagney in this, does play Cagney as a young person in other movies because he looks fucking identical.
You know who else looks like him is Evan Peters. You know Evan Peters?
No, not off the top of my head.
I had to look up if him and Cagney were like related. If he's like a Nepo baby down the Cagney line. I mean, not, but they look alike.
So, all right, okay.
I'm sorry, just struck me.
No, we're going off the rails. We do have to actually give the beat by beat on
so
this
I think
movie.
Let's explain this acting thing, and then let's do the beat by beat of the movie. Yeah.
If you were going for realism, Cagney was the better part for Tom Powers, better performer for Tom Powers. But the casting was set up because of the recording technology, and that you needed somebody who could very carefully enunciate and would adhere to that. And when I guess Wellman realized that the technology had progressed to a point where they didn't need that anymore, he switched them. Is that what you read? That's what I had read.
Yeah, exactly. So they had like a better microphone, and his sort of slurry speech was fine suddenly, and they were like, great.
Cagney's commentary on acting is planting both feet, looking the other guy in the eye, and telling the truth.
Which is very Marlon Brando as well. Like they feel cut from the same sort. Like Marlon Brando never really rose his voice. He's talked very quietly, famously, and sort of was in the scene.
Could have been a contender.
Yeah, yeah.
He's also there's a great clip about Brando coming from Christopher Reeves, and he was talking about like I kind of can't stand him, Brando, because
I agree.
Yeah,
he's got a reputation for being kind of an asshole.
Well, he refused to learn his lines.
And he did learn his lines.
Because he thought that would impair his performance. I think big part of the reason why I love these movies, particularly the Warner movies, I don't know if you've noticed this thread or not, but like I want to believe that the thing in the movie is real. I know you have an appreciation for the theatrical performance, that you are a musical person. I want my movies to feel like cinema verite. I want the actors to be not acting in my movies. That is necessary for me to buy in and for my suspension of disbelief. Usually, right. I mean, it kind of depends. Like I give schlock. I give, yeah. Like there's different rules for like a John Waters, for example.
Yeah, sure. Well, and this movie achieved that to such a degree that like there's varying intro cards to the movie. The one that I saw almost made it seem like, this isn't based off of a real story, but it might as well be, because it is real somewhere, basically. Like this has happened, and we're not glorifying what is happening here. I read somewhere that in one of the original screenings they had like puppets come out, and one puppet shot the other puppet in the back, which I feel like I know what they're trying to achieve, or actually I can't imagine that achieved whatever it is they were trying to achieve.
That was at the premiere in New York, and actually what's really funny is you haven't watched it yet, but we're going to watch Footlight Parade as part of this tour of the pre-code movies.
Also on the Great Movie Ride. And specifically because it's like the other Cagney. Right.
But the whole plot of that movie is that they would produce the pre-shows for movie theaters. So movie theaters at that time, it was an affair. I mean, like singers and dancers would come out before the movie, while do a little review, a performance, and then maybe there'd be a short subject or a newsreel, and and then the movie and stuff like that. And so he's a producer of these short subject theaters, like the theater parts that would go around and tour with the movie.
I was very lucky to grow up in a town with a small movie theater that had a live organist playing before the movie would start for my whole childhood. It was like one of the $2 movie theaters. It was
That's
great.
Amazing.
It was awesome.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an instrument called a photo player?
Nah, maybe, but not.
Clip it into the pod right here.
Photo player?
Yeah. You'll see it. It's amazing. It was a special instrument, each one custom built for doing music and sound effects to silent films. And man, is it a trip to see somebody play this thing. All right.
Well, let's walk it through. Yeah.
Walk it through. Finally, it starts. Our two characters here are Tom Powers and Matt. What's Matt's last name?
Matt Doyle.
Matt Doyle. Right. Tom and Matt are young miscreants living, I think, in the movie on the Lower East Side, which I'll come back to.
They're in Chicago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Irish immigrants in Chicago.
There you go. Irish kids in Chicago. I apologize. I was thrown for a second there.
That's
of course,
good.
it's
That's
Chicago.
why I'm here.
It's Chicago because the movie was adapted from an unpublished novel about Al Capone and the racketeering in Chicago.
Right. Beer and blood.
Beer and blood. All right. So they steal some beer in a bucket and they drink it. And, they're criminals. And then Tom's dad beats the poop out of them.
Criminals.
They're little criminal boys.
It's 1909. Yeah. Does the movie start with found footage of 1909? Or with like old footage?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is a lot in these pre-code movies, and it's like it's a different film stock you can see. There's like a lot of sort of like street scene stuff that I think gets recycled from one Warner Brothers movie to the next.
That's what it felt like, stock shots. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what it is,
Yeah.
Which might be why I was thrown about where it takes place, because I think they use the same footage for the slums everywhere.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Right. His dad spanks him. And so they steal the beer, and Big Brother also comes in for the first time. So Tommy has a big brother named...
I think it's Tom's
Mike.
little brother.
No, I thought it was his big brother. He's bigger than him in that opening scene. Okay. He's definitely, because he's supposed to be afraid of him when he comes out. For like that one moment is the only moment in the film where his brother seems to have some authority over him. And I do think that plays into their relationship as the film goes on.
Okay.
And it seems like Tom's always getting in trouble, and his brother...
He's on the straight and narrow.
Is definitely a straight and narrow kid and will straighten him out from time to time. But dad straightens him out in this one by giving him a proper spanking. It's so funny that people think of Tom as a lovable character, because he just seems like a little sociopath to me the whole way through. Yeah. I feel like I'm watching someone who was like very much enjoying this. Like, it feels very like where Walter White gets to at the end.
Yeah.
This kid
but people still love Walter White.
But he starts as sort of like, I got into this because of circumstance.
Sure.
Tom, just from childhood, like, you know exactly where he's headed. If he's not stealing beer, he's trying to trip the girl on roller skates. Like, he is just trouble.
Yeah. I will say there's a I forget what it was. Was it Oliver Sacks? It was like a medical researcher who basically found the marker for sociopathy in functional MRI. And they were like, oh shit, we can identify that in your brain. And he looked at himself and he's like, that doesn't make sense because apparently I'm a sociopath. And all of his friends were like, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. You're kind of a sociopath.
Yeah, we see that for you.
Yeah, and he was just like he was taken aback. He was like, why, if I'm a sociopath and I'll accept that I am, why would you all be friends with me? They're like, it's not because you're nice, it's because you're cool.
Yeah, sure. I can see that. Like,
and
sociopath does not mean bad person
I'm gonna murder
necessarily.
you. Right,
no, it just means that like he never. And it's very consistent throughout the film. Like, he reacts to things just sort of like, that happened, and he's driven by something other than emotions like fear or revenge. And that flips a little at the end, which is something I want to talk about when we get there. Mm-hmm. But it's the joy of the game for this guy all the way through.
Sure is.
All right.
Now we're out of our childhood. We've recast. So it's 1920.
Not
we
yet.
Go to 1920?
We've got 2 beats before we get to 1920, and then
all right.
Well,
then fill me
there.
in. What happens in 1915?
1915, we learn that his brother's gone to school, and Tom has a quote where he says, "Yeah, he's going to school learning how to be poor."
That was a common theme in these in the pre-code Warner Brothers movies. That like the straight and narrow path is a path that was laid out for you by people who are controlling society.
Yes.
You need to take matters into your own hands if you're going to get ahead in America.
Period. And this is also a thread that goes through this entire movie, but yeah.
It's one of the reasons why these movies were so subversive and ran afoul of the code.
Right. His brother is following what I should do to be a better American, to be a better man, and eventually I'll get rewarded for it.
Right.
And Tommy is very much like, you go get it.
Yeah,
no one's going to reward you. No one's going to do right by you. Yeah. Which something we missed in their childhood days. They're like selling stolen watches to Putty Nose.
Yeah, they're doing like small time shit for Putty Nose.
Small time shit. Yeah.
Hang around that pool hall.
Bar. Yeah.
Which rhymes with P and stands for. Which rhymes with T and stands for trouble.
It stands for pool. It stands for pool. Yeah, that'll be a nice clip from Music Man right there. Trouble. All right, we're back. So Putty Nose gets them a bigger gig.
They're going to steal these furs.
Mm-hmm. And Tom gets spooked by
a bear.
A taxidermied bear.
Yeah.
And shoots at him like 3 times, which does... Okay, so that, like, I'm going to contradict myself from just a minute ago, but he does show a little fear there. He's jumpy.
He's got fear of self-preservation.
Sure, yeah.
You want to get the drop on the other guy, especially if he's a bear.
Yeah, it's their first time out. And all this, it is brilliant writing because it's like, okay, this is so much bigger than anything they've done. Like, they're getting into it now.
I think it is like the first time that he gets a gun too, right?
He gives them a gun
and he kind of looks at it like, oh, this is fucking serious shit.
Yeah. And then Larry, they got another buddy with them, Larry. And so they shoot, the cops give chase, Larry dies. They shoot a cop. They go running to Putty Nose, who says he's got them no matter what happens. And Putty Nose has fled town.
Yeah. He's out because the cop's been
killed. A cop's been killed. He's heard about it. He's out. Yeah.
Which, by the way, you can't shoot cops after the code. Just like, I'm going to go through and point out code stuff. Like,
please, yeah.
Yeah, you can't shoot a cop on screen after the code.
Yeah, if you want to deeper dive in the code, we did that in Island of Lost Souls, and I think even more in like Frankenstein and those movies.
It was a set of self-imposed censorship that Hollywood adopted in 1934 because they were terrified that the government was going to censor movies because of movies like The Public Enemy. And the code was largely written by a Archbishop Dolan, I think. I might be mistaken on that.
No, we have his
Catholic
name
guy.
somewhere. Yeah. And a politician.
And a politician.
Got together.
And it sucked. And actually, I give my wife credit for this because we watch a lot of old movies. And it's like, she was like, man, from like 1934 to 1935, it's like someone flipped a switch. And your female characters go from having agency, desires, and like ambitions and being characters to being props for male characters.
I don't think it's overstating it to say that like this destroyed society.
I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
I truly, it's proof
awful.
that censorship works and that you can change the direction of society by exerting that control. Absolutely.
We also watched Babyface and Gold Diggers of 1933, which we'll get to, but watching the women in these movies.
It's so refreshing.
It's refreshing and like also just
infuriating.
Oh my gosh. It's hard. It's actually very hard.
Yeah. They stuffed all the women in the closet.
All right. So we touch on 1970 for a minute. It's when the brother goes to war. 1970. We just jump right into bell bottoms. 1917.
1917.
His brother decides to go fight in World War I.
Yep.
And punches Tommy after accusing him of being a nickel snatcher.
Yeah. His mother begs him not to go. Tom.
Begs Tom not to go. Yeah,
don't go.
Absolutely.
I can't lose both my sons to this.
Whereas, like, I don't think Tom was really planning on enlisting, but you think so?
I don't know that he wouldn't have. I would, as you pointed out, he liked killing things. He was a sociopath.
That's a good point. I don't think.
And there was like so much fervor about that. The mobsters in these movies, the gangsters in these movies, could have gone either way depending on the film. I'm thinking about like there's a later movie that is not a pre-code movie, but it's a good movie. Key Largo, where Edward G. Robinson is a mobster who's returning to America after World War II because he didn't want to get involved in the war.
Yeah.
But like I don't. It's just relevant because like I think that Tom Powers could have fought in the war.
I would imagine that anyone watching this movie when it came out in that time would have immediately assumed some sort of like shame that his brother's going and he's not.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, in 1931, sentiments had soured on patriotism and the war, I think, pretty heavily. I think it would have been looked at like, who was going to enlist in Vietnam?
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't know that to be true, 100% true, but that's the vibe I get. I also think that to push back on your whole thing about Tom having no feelings for anybody, I think Tom loves his mom.
Yes, I think so. I think
he tries to give her a bunch of money.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to. So there's a person in my family who has a similar relationship with their mother, but still I don't think it's out of I don't think it's love. I think it's the thing he knows he's supposed to do. I take care of my mother, I bring her money, I go see my mother, but it's just like this is how people act. And so I might very much be imprinting my own experience onto Tom, but I never see him get he's just, and his mom also gives him this excuse to just be what he wants to be. Her begging him to stay back is such a gift to him.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
So I don't know. Yeah, I could go either way on that, but that might be my own shit.
Tom and Matt get into work for Patty Ryan in bootlegging.
Because Prohibition starts. We go to 1920 Prohibition. They're clearing the shelves out of the liquor store. Everything must go.
Yep.
And a new
war's
opportunity.
Over and money is to be made.
Yes.
So Tom's job is to go around and make bars buy beer, whether they want to buy it or not.
Yeah. Well, first they heist a bunch of beer from an existing brewery.
Yeah.
Which hadn't crossed my mind before, that they like shut this down and there was all this like liquor in barrels all over the country aging.
Yeah, and also like not every brewery and distillery was actually shut down during Prohibition. There were, I think, Old Overholt, for example. I think that one, they got special, like, we can make medicinal whiskey. There was, just like there was medical marijuana, there was medical whiskey. There was. You could get a prescription for having a nerve disorder, and you could get a prescription for whiskey.
But when Prohibition ended, were people like, well, now this whiskey has been aged for 13 years.
They were drinking it. I don't think
okay.
No, I don't think so much was just sitting around.
Sure, if you had access to it, you were
making
selling it or drinking it.
You were staying in business one way or another.
Yeah.
Other countries didn't have prohibition, so I think you could still export.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I know that you could still export. I just don't know. I just don't know if you wanted to pay taxes on it. It's a win-win scenario, really.
So they make a whole bunch of money off of this first heist, and I don't want to forget the first heist for this reason, because he goes to get fitted for a suit afterwards, and we've got ourselves a gay character.
Oh, sir, here's where you need the room. Such a muscle.
And that was censored in the re-release.
Yeah, it sure was.
That character doesn't exist in the post-code version.
Which I was actually happy to hear, because at first I was like, oh, gay guy. And I was like, I'm just going to be told I think everybody's gay.
No, he's gay.
And it's very explicit. And then, he was removed from the
Cagney
movie.
calls him gay.
Well, basically. The guy makes a pass at him, and he tells him, no, thank you. In gang language.
Wasn't he kind of grabbing his nuts or something?
No, he says, leave a little room in the pants. And the guy is touching his arm and goes, this is where you need the room. And he's like, your muscles.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. And he's like, move it along, buddy. We got places to be.
I thought he makes like a side comment to his friend, too, in Yiddish, right?
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to go back and
Cagney
look.
would slip Yiddish into movies on a regular basis.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, I think he does. And it's with a grin, you know.
Funny. And then after that, they become the muscle. They're the shakedown guys.
But he needed the space for his gun. That's what the space was for.
For in his pants.
A little space under his arm and a little space in his pants for his gun and stuff.
Got it.
Yeah, he's got his girlfriend, Mae Clark. And she's like a real straight-laced. I don't know how that works, but do they meet? How do they meet?
He's out with Matt.
Yeah.
And there's these two girls at a table, and they're the two fellas they're with are passed out, just drunk and passed out.
Class acts.
And so they have eyes on these girls, and they send the bouncer to take these two drunk guys out of their bar, because it's you don't want these guys in here. They've had too much. They can't buy anymore.
Yep.
They don't belong here anymore. And then he just sits down
and take their seats.
Oh my gosh, he gets so close to these girls. It's so uncomfortable, but he just sits down, basically wraps himself around her and says, I think I'm going to be into you. Yeah. And Matt takes a more nuanced approach.
And we have Mae Clark and Joan Blondell here. Mm-hmm. Now, I got to pause and say that James Cagney said Joan Blondell was the only woman he ever loved other than his wife. Mm-hmm. I agree.
They worked a lot together, yeah.
I adore Joan Blondell. She has got to be just one of the great babes of Hollywood, and so smart and so funny and just a delight to watch in everything she's in.
Yeah.
But yet, not only did they work a lot together, they got into Hollywood together specifically.
Yes, right. They were
We'll step back real quick.
Yeah.
Both of them were vaudevillians in New York. Also, I was reading about Blondell's biography up until this point, and what a crazy life she led. It was insane.
Really? Let's save her for Gold Diggers of 33,
sure.
just because there's so much to talk about here, but I want to hear that.
They got cast in a play called Penny Arcade, which opened and closed in 3 weeks, during which time Al Jolson happened to see it and bought the rights for $20,000 and sold it to Hollywood, to Warner Brothers, with the explicit instructions that you must cast Blondell and Cagney to reprise their roles. And so they came into Warner's as a duo. I also love, too, that Jack Warner wanted Blondell. Joan Blondell is already such a perfect stage name. He wanted her to be Inez something, or I forget what it is, but it was just she was like, no.
Yeah. Good for her.
What?
Yeah.
I think Blondell already was a stage name, if I'm not mistaken. It was a name, her family was a vaudeville family. And so they got into Hollywood together in Sinner's Holiday, which came out in 1930. And if you look at Cagney and Blondell's careers at this point, I think Cagney, 2 movies in 30, 5 or 6 movies in 31. it's just like insane how
But he wasn't getting paid a lot. He was like their workhorse at that time. Like it seems like later in his career, like he fought to only do 4 movies a year, 3 movies a year, because they were paying him like $400 a week and just working him to the bone.
Well, you were under contract. And,
Yeah, right.
You know, and like you got paid your contract, which was not bad. You know what I mean? Like other people were not doing as well as even poorly paid Hollywood actors.
No, for sure.
Especially, you know, at that time. But yeah, I mean, like you didn't get paid per picture. You got paid to show up and work and you didn't know what you were doing.
Right.
Like,
Well, and it seemed like he was always very contentious with Warner Brothers because they never would recognize him for the star he was or the money he was bringing in.
that may be.
Yeah, and he left them several times and came back to sort of make them raise his pay and beg him to come back.
I think Blondell was actually the highest paid actress at one point.
And he becomes as well. He gets,
He's James Cagney.
I know, but it takes a lot longer than you'd think because
the studio
this
system.
movie all the way in 1931 is what blew him up, and it takes years for him to get there. Yeah.
And so he had been in a couple of movies before this. If you've ever seen, I've seen Sinner's Holiday, the adaptation of Penny Arcade. It's pretty forgettable.
And they are not the leads in it. No, that is the one they're the leads.
No, they're the leads.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
then both of them don't really get like big roles again until this one. But they do work together a lot. And after this, they work together in some of these unbelievable, like Blonde Crazy, Footlight Parade. I mean, this Blonde Crazy and Footlight Parade is like all you really need. But like, there's more, and it's all just pure gold. Anyway, and you've got Mae Clarke. And honestly, I'm not well versed in Mae Clarke at all.
And the whole reason we're going down this rabbit hole is because one of the famous scenes of this movie is when he's having breakfast with her. He asks her, "You got anything to drink?" And she goes, "For breakfast," basically. And it is like, more or less, it's like, what a nag, and he's done with her and shoves a grapefruit in her face.
Yeah. So,
which has a lot of lore around it.
Yeah, a bunch. And first off, I mean, like their relationship was based on the fact that he met her at a bar one night and liked the way she looked.
Yes.
They are a mismatched couple. Why she stays with him, I mean, it must be for the diamonds or something.
Yeah, the money. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Security
but
money.
Like, she's a much softer-hearted, classier act than he is. Like, they're a poor match. Well, their relationship ends right there. William Wellman, director. William Wellman.
Yeah.
He's the director. He put that there. Okay, so first off,
there's a couple different versions of the story.
The lie is that she didn't know the grapefruit is coming and that it was a surprise.
She debunked that even. Yeah.
Yeah. She said, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, and in truth, like what an awful thing to put on Cagney, by the way, you know?
Well, if there's a version of that story where she's like, they wanted it to be a surprise and he told me before we shot it.
Like, I didn't hear that. Yeah.
All of these are, I mean, we have no way to know if any of these are true stories, but that is one telling of the story.
The thing I heard her say was that she was surprised it was in the movie because she thought it was just to make the crew laugh. Like it was like a planned outtake. They used to release reels called breakups that would have been short subjects shown before movies that would have been outtakes from movies.
Yeah.
So, you know, like.
Okay. So just one of those. They would do that all the time. That makes sense.
Yeah. Like alongside your newsreel before the B picture or the A picture, there might have been like breakups of 1931, you know, and like. It would have just been like funny outtakes, which would have promoted the movies that were coming out, right? And the director says it was his idea because his wife used to always eat a grapefruit at breakfast and they would get into fights and she would show no response and he always wanted to shove her grapefruit in her face. And then he felt better after having Mae Clarke take the grapefruit in the face.
Yeah, he lived out his fantasy. There's also a bit about this part where Clark's ex-husband used to time out when the scene would happen in the movie and then like go in and just watch it happen over and over again.
That feels like
a story.
Yeah, that feels like a story, but I do love that.
Yeah, but it's in the lore for this scene for sure.
But hugely famous moment in cinema history.
Yeah, got it.
And in cinema misogyny. Well, I mean, no, not I'm going to push back on that. No, he's a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit exactly.
Also, he's like 24. He's a little young asshole who's getting too big for his britches and just decides like, I mean, not too big. Like he's the mob. They are
right.
Like I heard someone say like, it always surprises me that there's just a total absence of cops in this movie. And it's like, They were paid off.
Well, that, but also like
He's the rule.
You take for granted things like the police having radios,
Right.
you know, all of them having cars, the concept of fingerprinting, like, you know, you take for granted a lot of like, you know, forensic stuff that like, it was fucking easy to do crime back then.
But I also think that people would have known watching a movie about like big time Chicago mobsters like this, like had that taken care of. Like they keep showing you newspaper clips throughout the movie of what the mob is up to. Like it's being reported on because it's important for everyone to know because it affects all of their lives.
Well, and the two journalists whose names I don't know who wrote Beer and Blood were present covering a lot of these mob slayings. They claimed, you know,
they were like wartime reporters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. At least that's what I had read. So
the brother comes back from war. Everyone's sending him flowers, and he's a little like, why am I getting so much attention here? And someone breaks it to him like, well, your brother's not making his money off of politics like he says he is.
I love your hands ain't clean. You didn't get those medals for having tea with the Germans or whatever. You killed and you liked it.
Yeah, so they have dinner, and they're trying to get the brother to drink some of their beer, and he won't. And he throws the keg, and he throws our book a quote saying, there's blood in that booze, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is a nod to I always think it's funny. I think it's funny when the title of a movie or
I said the movie. Yeah. You are the public enemy.
Yes, exactly. And so Cagney shoots back at him and says, like, you didn't get all those medals from shaking hands with them Germans.
That's what shaking hands,
or something.
Well,
which
your hands ain't clean. You killed and you liked it. You didn't get those medals for shaking hands with Germans. You killed and you liked it. Oh my God.
Yeah. But again, like when you're thinking about the code, like that says so much about the war, the U.S.'s involvement in the war, what he thinks about their involvement in the war.
Exactly.
And this, for me, was like, that nickel scene is so important where he tells his brother, like, you think I'm a criminal and you're just stealing petty nickels. It's like his brother isn't just this great guy who goes and gets his education, who goes and, you know, when he had to steal a nickel here and there to send home to his mother, he did it, but he could never just lean into it. It's like, you don't just get the squeaky clean brother. You also have this seed of doubt that maybe the brother would have gone this way if he just had the balls to do it.
Right.
Which makes you like Tom more in some ways. It's like, it's confusing. It's not clean.
It's not.
Things post code just are so neat and clean and tidy.
And the silence. You know, in the silence, you've got like mustachioed good guys and bad guys. And it takes this, you know, Cagney was the guy born to play these roles.
Yeah.
And they're very conflicted characters. They are anti-heroes, but like actual anti-heroes. I always push back on the idea that Batman is an anti-hero because he's not. He's just a hero who wears black. An anti-hero is a villain that you like.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right. He says your brother, like you see yourself as a war hero and I see you as someone who just wanted to kill and did it in a different way.
Yeah.
Harsh.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Way harsh.
Real harsh. And, you know, like you were saying, I mean, like what a thing to say about the U.S. involvement in World War I.
Incredible.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know that I don't think that kind of thing survives censorship.
Did it? There's 3 removed scenes.
The 3 removed scenes are breakfast in bed because it's premarital sex, and the gay Taylor because it is gay, and one more scene with a lady.
Like literally an assault. She assaults him. She sexually assaults him.
Oh yeah.
Ryan, one of the big mobsters. One of the people above Tom,
Patty
Ryan, yeah, his girlfriend takes advantage of him while he is blackout drunk.
Oh yeah. That's not nice.
Well,
but that's got nothing
upset
to
about it. He's very angry about it.
Yeah, that's got nothing to do. Well, I mean, it's a good way to get killed by Patty Ryan, right?
Well, there's that, but yeah, I mean, it seems bigger than that. Like he wants to be in control, and he was not in control in that moment.
Yeah, nobody wants to be assaulted.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I hear people regard the scene as like, it's so cool, and I'm like, they don't even play it off that way. Like,
Well,
he does not think it's cool.
He does not. What is cool is the portrayal that like women can be just as bad as men. Women are not,
Sure.
angels
Yes.
with this purity. Like they're in the mud with everybody else. And actually, I'm thinking now of other, in Picture Snatcher, it's another Cagney movie where there's a real, like his buddy's girlfriend keeps desperately trying to fuck him.
Yeah.
and he has to resist her constantly.
Well, and for people who just thought we were like Puritans, like you thought the 1950s,
Right.
like, go back even further, and like nothing could be further from the truth.
That's what is so refreshing about these
Yeah.
movies to me is that like it's the mask off. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the 50s, that era of the Western, of the, the, I don't know, whatever the fuck it is. Like that was always a lie. That is
Yeah.
always about censorship. And
And it didn't last as long. That lie didn't last as long as people think it did.
but the thing is, there's a whole generation of little boys and girls who grew up not knowing it was a lie.
yeah,
They
you know,
believed in it.
well, and it's like fascinating to me. I have this video, I'll put a piece of it in here, of my grandparents' wedding. And my grandparents were very straight-laced, very 1950s, like
Sure.
the quintessential 1950s, people, small business owner, the whole
Yeah,
thing. His mom, my grandfather's mom, and I know my grandmother's mom, they had just come over from Sweden. I think a lot of this influence came from her. My grandmother was very like straight-laced and pure. My grandfather's mother is in their wedding reception video drinking out of the bottle. She was a flapper. She came up in the 20s. She's older in this video, which is 1942 or something like that. And she's getting kisses on the cheek. She's sitting on men's laps. Like she is drunk as a skunk. I was shook when I saw this video in college because, I mean, yeah, I was raised to believe like our family doesn't do that. And here's great grandma like plastered hanging out with guys who are not her husband. I love it. I love it. I'm so glad I have it.
I'm so glad I was at least partially raised by two extremely self-assured and liberated women in that regard,
Yeah.
Well, my grandmother, who was the burlesque dancer, was, I don't know what the right word is here, very dependent on my grandfather, but not full of bullshit. And
Yeah.
she was she was pretty honest about how the world worked, and there was no veneer. There was
Yeah.
no mask. My other grandmother was her own business owner and was liked
Right, the
to
makeup business, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she did like to put up a front, but she didn't have a guy around and kept a very fully stocked bar, and was a real self-made kind of socialite. She really she had a good time too. She had a lot of parties, a lot of friends, a lot of parties. I always thought of her as like an Auntie Mame. But
That's we've actually made that reference on this podcast before, but I think we kind of have rewritten the Roaring 20s as like people who just got really dressed up and danced a lot. And it's like, no. No.
cocaine on tap.
Yeah, right. They were having lots of premarital sex.
It was a wild time.
Yeah. And they were in the 50s too. They just decided it was time to lie about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Too much to unpack.
shit, man. It's normally I can conjure up the lyrics to Anything Goes at the drop of a hat, but at the moment I'm drawing a blank. But like it's all right there in that song.
Yeah.
Dun,
dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun, dun,
If
dun,
Mae
dun,
West
dun,
you
dun,
like, if
anything
something undressed you like, then anything goes. If
Da, da,
when
da, da,
so and so
da.
hangs at nudist parties, like I think orgies are referenced, like
Yeah.
a song is like he's not fucking around. He's not pulling any punches.
Did they make a movie out of Anything Goes?
There was a Broadway musical called Anything Goes
Right, oh, yeah.
that I actually saw and really enjoyed because I love the music of Cole Porter in the 1930s and all the jazz. I like the jazz. I like the jazz in my musicals. I do not like the piano. It's too modern sounding. I don't like it. Give me the big jazz band.
I feel like they had to have made that into a movie.
So When do we get Harlow in here? Because we're out.
Right after this.
We've tossed Gwen. She just jumps
Yeah.
into his car or something, right?
Yeah, he sees her on the side of the road and
That's what it
says, "Hey, baby," which is, I guess people called her baby her whole life. I guess that was her her like nickname that stuck. He flirts with her and gets her to come into his car with him.
Loose women.
Turns
Fast
Matt
cars.
into his chauffeur.
Yeah.
Matt tries to introduce himself and he's like, he doesn't have a name.
Love it. I love it. Easy, buddy.
Yeah.
You've got Joan over there.
Well, and right after this scene too, Matt gets married because it's like, all right, I'm just going to stick with Mamie because anybody else who comes around, Tom's just going to take all the thunder there.
I think he made the right move there. I know she was, and I'm not joking when I say the phrase platinum blonde was coined to refer to Jean Harlow and the blonde bombshell, but I got to tell you, she's not my type. I definitely prefer Joan.
Yeah, anything that you think Marilyn Monroe started was
oh no, yeah, absolutely.
She was mimicking Jean Harlow for sure.
I'll tell you, Jean Harlow had some pretty crazy eyebrows.
Well, so she looks like, to me, I also had to look up Fairuza Balk. Is that how you say her name?
Fairuza Balk.
From The Craft.
Really?
So it might just be because the poster image is like seared into my brain and the way the poster image is, but I'm gonna put them side by side because it lasted into the movie. I was like, they have very different vibes, but their faces are similar. Anyway,
Harlow's now in the picture with her drag queen eyebrows. I'm sorry, but like I feel like Divine took inspiration from those. Her eyebrows in particular, they're very severe. They're a bit much for me. It's too much.
Yes,
it's interesting too. Like there's a lot of looks that you can pull off in black and white that don't work in film. The pencil mustache, very dashing in black and white. In real life, very porny, very pervy.
Yeah,
very pervy.
I don't know if I've ever seen that look and been like, yes, now I understand why people liked it.
Oh, I do. I get it. Not everything's for you, Meredith.
Yeah, clearly. So yeah, Matt gets married to Mamie. They see across the room at that like after party or whatever, Putty Nose has returned.
Yeah. Putty Nose.
And
heartbreaking scene.
The wedding is over for those two because they're just.
It's the guy who hung us out to dry.
Gonna have a chat with Putty Nose.
And he's back because he's on hard times and needs money.
Yeah.
And he asks, right? Doesn't he ask for a handout?
They are walking down the street. He's trying to get back into the game in whatever way. I don't know if he asked for a direct handout.
Right. Kind of a Fagin.
Yeah. They invite themselves into his apartment.
Yeah. I think he kind of knows the score, but doesn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah. He's hoping that he can appeal to their nostalgia. He sits down when things get really desperate. He sits down at the piano and starts playing.
Remember when I used to play this for you, boys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets really sad. It actually.
That's what I'm saying. It's a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah, it's tough. You don't have a lot of love for this guy, but this is one of those scenes where like they make a very distinct difference between Tommy and Matt.
Yeah, because go on because you're gonna have the details. I've seen this movie 1,000 times. So he's sitting down
playing this song, and Tommy's standing across the room, knowing what's gonna happen, and it's the desperation in his piano playing just like takes you to a place.
I agree.
And the camera, swipes away to Matt across the room. Or it pans away, and you just hear couple shots, and Tommy's killed him, and then the piano, the dong of the piano.
Somebody asked me if I have emotional responses to anything in a recent comment. That gets me. I mean, I didn't weep about it, but like, I felt a thing.
Because then Tom walks out of the room and says just something very casual, like, let's go meet up with so-and-so, and it's sort of a cheery voice. I don't remember exactly what his line is. And Matt is just like stone-faced.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between these two guys.
Yeah, Tom has kind of crossed a threshold here.
Yeah. Well, and Matt just feels the weight of like, but this is a guy from our childhood, and Tommy has it doesn't appear to have any feelings about it whatsoever.
He's about that
This
life.
guy screwed us up. He dies. Yeah, period.
He's about that life.
Mm-hmm. The end of the movie, I have there's some questionable moments for me because of this build up. But
Go on. Take me through it.
We get a scene with Gwen where Gwen kind of admits, I like bad boys. This is the last scene with her, and that bothers me a little bit because they're about to have sex. They're about to, it seems like they're about to, and they get interrupted by Matt telling them that Nails, their sort of big boss, who we haven't mentioned yet, but he is the guy that is giving them all of their directives, has been killed. Matt's just like, who did it? Let's go get him. And this guy's
Burns?
like, he got kicked off his horse. He got kicked in the head.
That's right.
It's just a freak accident.
His horse killed him. They buy the horse and kill it.
Yeah, they buy a horse and
I fucking love that.
which I guess was really shocking for audiences too.
I think it's honestly like it's a moment of dark comedy in this movie because what an absurd thing to have happen in the movie.
Well, and Tommy's just like, now he
We gotta get revenge on this fucking horse.
And he likes it. Yeah.
Nobody kills my boss and gets away with that.
Right. So from this point out, Patty Ryan, now their new boss, has started a gang war. There's a weakness because Nails is dead, so the rival gang is trying to get rid of these guys and take over.
I think the impression too is that Patty Ryan's not really running as tight a ship as Nails.
He wants to. Patty Ryan
have the grasp.
Right. Patty Ryan thinks he's going to go out and clean these guys up and then be the king, and there's a war over it, and he hides them out at his house with his girlfriend taking care of them very well, according to some. But yeah, they're just supposed to sit there, and you can tell Tom is itching to get out. And there keeps being this beat with a coal truck, because at first you hear this huge noise, and they all run to the window. Oh, it's just the coal truck, which actually it does end up being the cover for the guys with Tommy guns sitting across the street waiting for one of them to come out.
Yeah.
Oh, but there's a moment in this where Patty Ryan leaves, and he drives his car out of a garage, and the camera goes under the street and looks up at the car.
How'd they do it?
Not how'd they do it.
Like a hole.
Yeah, I know, but so I just never hear this mentioned. And when in Citizen Kane, that shot where they dug into the floor is such legend. And here it is, at least 10 years earlier, dug into the street looking up.
I love Orson Welles, but he was a showman who was really good at taking credit for things and making claims that weren't true. I mean, there was no panic about War of the Worlds when they aired the broadcast.
Right.
There was no.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that was marketing that he came up with afterwards.
Oh, wow.
He also claimed that he would get around New York City faster when he was producing plays in New York by hiring an ambulance instead of a taxi because there was no law against it. That's maybe disputed. That might be a little personal folklore he built up. There was a lot of stuff about him. I mean, I think that to some extent he made that documentary F for Fake, which you should see. It's great. And I think it's a little bit of a self, there's a real Andy Warhol kind of Orson Welles is himself a performance piece. You know what I mean?
All right. Anyway, to wrap this up.
One of my favorite scenes is coming up. It's so good. The ending of this movie is so hot. Hot.
I might hand it to you after. So the assault that we've already talked about happens, and that drives him to storm out of the hideout.
Is this the scene when he just barely doesn't get shot?
Mm-hmm. But Matt does.
But Matt gets shot.
Killed.
So
yeah.
Those are real bullets.
Yes. Crazy. I was reading this all over the place.
Yeah.
He had to fight to not get shot at in movies because he did so many of these gangster movies.
Yeah.
He was like, guys, I'm not dying for this.
That was the last time. The quote
Live
from him
ammunition.
is, "That's the last time I ever let them shoot at me with real bullets." What the fuck?
Because you see I guess I didn't think about how they would have done that, but you see the wall sort of get shot up.
Yeah, now you use squibs for that. They basically had to probably invent squibs because of Cagney.
Good. Jesus.
I always think about Buster Keaton. I don't know how much Buster Keaton movies you've seen. This is going to be a long episode, Meredith.
Clips. Yeah, I know.
I've watched a lot of Buster Keaton. I'm obsessed with Buster Keaton. His sense of physical comedy is incredible. And the shit that he did is insane. And you will watch his movies and think, God, I wonder how they did that. And in fact, people who visited set would ask him, God, I wonder what was the trick there. And he would say, there's no trick. There's a famous story. I think it was while they were filming The General. There was a reporter there, and they were like, how'd you do that bit where you fell off the train while it was rolling and then tumbled down the track? How and he's taking off his shirt to get dressed for another take, and he's like wearing a cast. He's got bandages all around him. He's completely black and blue from head to toe. He's like, Trick, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm working with a broken arm.
Yeah.
No, Buster Keaton was a freak of nature. There was nobody ever before. The only guy you can compare him to, in my opinion, is Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan. I was wondering if that's what you were saying.
I think that it's Jackie Chan and Buster
Stunts.
Keaton is the only. They're freaks of nature, man.
Well, and Buster Keaton just has that switch, like people who do extreme sports, people who do free climbing, people who like tightrope, who pull these stunts.
He just happened to be that guy.
He's the original stunt guy.
There was a triptych of silent comedian actors, of course, the big three. You got Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, and of course Charlie Chaplin. Yeah. And Chaplin and Lloyd also had some improbable physical comedy in their movies. But so I think that people, and they did fake it, right? Like they would use matte paintings, they would use all kinds of tricks and stuff like that, but Keaton never did. And so I think there was an assumption even at that time that Keaton was somehow faking it. But everything you see Keaton do in a movie is for real, except for in Sherlock Jr. when he comes out of the movie screen. But that was a trick shot. Sorry.
He's an adrenaline junkie. Yeah, he liked it. He would have. Yeah, right. Anyway,
shooting at people with real bullets on set is a thing, and to the point that
common.
He just barely got his head out of the shot before they opened fire on him. So that's how you did the movies back then.
Well, and the closer it is to hitting you, the better it looks in the final product.
It's a good shot. Yeah.
Yikes. Oh, yikes.
Frame is both bigger and smaller than you think it is.
Yeah. So his face as his buddy gets shot is so fascinating to me. Or as he's realizing that his best friend from childhood died.
What do you read in it, please?
Just excitement. Now I get to go murder all of these people.
You killed and you liked it.
Yeah.
He's projecting.
I don't know if there's sadness there much at all. It's just I'm unleashed. What do you think?
I don't think you make it that far in that business if you give yourself that time to have sadness. You do the job first and you feel about it later. A lot of people, they grieve 6 months after or something like that. You got to carry on first.
But what do you think Matt's character's reaction would have been if they were flipped?
I don't think Matt had that. I don't think Matt was about that life. I think Matt was about that Tom. Matt was Tom's best friend first, and Tom was a criminal. Tom is Tom.
I agree.
And that's why Matt dies, right?
Right. Of course.
That's what I'm saying is that so I 100% I think that there's you're absolutely valid in that assessment, but I also, it's plausible to me that no, what it really is just that's how it is. He might be feeling a lot of things, but he has to move right now. Right now, that's just what it is.
But it's chilling. It's just this
course.
hunger in his eyes of now I get to do whatever I want.
When I think about that shot, when Matt's been shot, Tom is now, I think, kind of, it's up. They're coming for us. We're not going to win. All I can do now is take out as many as I can.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe, you have to be kind of fatalistic about it. If I somehow come out on the other side of that, that's great. I'll be still in business and I'll make my peace with this and I'll have all kinds of feelings. But right now, I'm next. And the only thing that I can do is take out as many of them as I can with me. And I think it's more just that steely resolve of we got to kill.
Yeah.
It's time to kill.
Yeah.
And the shit hits the fan. The people who make it through and carry everybody else through get fucking cold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he does go on a rampage.
Goes to the gun shop and he's got this guy, he's showing him, he's putting in all the bullets and he closes it and he says, all right, now put your hands up.
Show me how it works. How about Terminator? Same scene.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in James Cameron Terminator 1, the first Terminator. Make sure everybody's where he needs them to be, and then he goes in and shoots them up. Rat-a-tat-tat.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yes, yeah.
We find out he's been shot because he stumbles
out. Yeah.
And we have another really low camera angle.
Yes.
From the gutter. And we're under the elevated, I'm using your terms. We're you Chicagoan. We're under the L, the elevated railroad there in Chicago, and the ground is wet, just water everywhere. That mirror black, right? Like that, the way the light reflects across it. So a lot of people pool gangster movies and noir into the same genre. They are absolutely not. Noir is a fundamentally different genre that comes later in the post World War II environment. And I can break down exactly why they're totally different things, but they do both have that grit. But this is a noir shot. This shot is prefacing the whole idea of lighting scenes by reflecting light off of wet streets and stuff like that. Becomes like a thing in the world of noir. It's like a trademark of noir. I think that's my vibe on that. Just like the aesthetics of it. And he comes towards the camera in this long hold, the shot that just like, we just stay on this shot, and he collapses into the foreground and says, "I ain't so tough." Oh God, I love it. I love it so much. What does that mean? I don't, you know what I mean?
Like he expected to be Teflon going into this place. Yeah.
I think it's, maybe it's that. I think it's just that he was so quick with a quip this whole time. His instinct was to always kind of jam the knife and twist verbally on anybody he ever got one over on. He has to do it to himself. you know, the whole movie he's basically been saying, "You ain't so tough," and now it's like,
it's him.
"I ain't so tough." Yeah. He goes to the hospital. All right.
Yeah, he's alive. He survives it.
We have that confrontation with his mother too. I'm sorry, I want to go back to that. That is just before all of this shit goes down.
His mother and his brother.
He knows he's going to his death.
Yeah,
and he tries to like load them up with his cash.
Yes.
Like, "Look, Ma, look, I made good. Take this," right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
And his brother throws it in his face. His brother throws it in his face.
His brother won't take it. And he
Mom
eventually
will take
rips
it.
in half.
Mom's
Mom wants it. Yeah, Mom's gonna take it.
Man.
Yeah. And his brother throws it at him again on his way out, and he rips it in half and throws it at him and storms out. Yeah.
Insanity.
Then they go to the hospital. Mom and brother come to the hospital to see him. And so Tommy's like apologizing, saying he's gonna come home.
Yeah.
This is where the tough guy does turn off, and maybe that's what the line "I ain't so tough" is.
Yeah.
He realizes that he's not invincible.
Yeah. Kind of an awakening here.
Yeah, I think it also can be assumed. I wanted to be really harsh on this scene, like his character wouldn't do that. I think it also could be assumed that he's going to go wherever he needs to go to heal. It doesn't mean that once he gets better, he doesn't say, "All right, I'm back at it." But he's having a moment of reform.
A lot of people hit rock bottom and swear they're never going to do blah, blah ever
and go
again.
Back to it.
And then 6 months later, they're right back at their old tricks, right?
Yes.
So.
And we've never really seen him. He doesn't do that throughout the movie. He doesn't say, all right, I'm done, and then go back to it. He's always in it. He's stone cold the whole way through. So this is the first. And Mom is crying, "My sons are going to be friends again. My sons are going to be friends again." And they go home to prepare for his return. And the next scene we see has been like a day or two later. The brothers visited him at the hospital, confirms to us, the audience, that like, yep, he was sitting up, he's doing better, he's going to come home. And so Mom starts preparing home for him. And
the other gang picks him up.
Which Mom doesn't know, but Mike does know. And Mike's waiting for a very different phone call than Mom.
Yep.
And there's a knock at the door, and Mom's up getting the pillows ready. I'm going to have my boys home, I'm going to have my whole family home. And Mike answers the door, and for a split second, you see Tommy's face and think, oh, maybe they did just send him home.
Yeah.
And
well, he's wrapped up, though, in that, like, straitjacket or whatever kind of thing.
Right. And his head's still wrapped, which was kind of how we had seen him at the hospital. But he's bloody. He's more bloody than he was at the hospital. He's been fucked with.
But he's dead.
Yeah.
And he's just
dead.
Propped against the door. And as soon as they open the door, he just collapses forward into frame.
Yeah.
End.
Yeah.
That's it. We're out. Movie's over.
Pretty much. Yeah. The brother flips him over. We cut back to Mom like one more time, and then back to Mike, and Mike like runs towards camera, and it's cut. Yeah.
I love it.
It's good. It's really
fucking
good.
great. It's so good. What's the runtime? 60 minutes? 90 minutes?
Hour 24.
Okay.
Under 90,
Yeah,
which is
tight.
incredible.
Right. Yeah. Fucking A, man.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, and I was thinking too in that last scene, like in the context of me being in 2025 watching back to this movie, like I knew he was going to be dead, but there was a seed of doubt in my mind even now, not having seen it before or knowing how it ended. And I can imagine in 1931, people were just on the edge of their seats. I don't think people were expecting him to. Well, I don't know. I think it could have gone either way. I think you truly would have been in a moment of extreme suspense.
So, you just touched on something too, where we were talking about like people struggling with their demons, and you're like, but we don't see that throughout the movie. We don't see, him saying, "Oh, I'm going to straighten out," and then he keeps falling back into it or anything like that. I don't personally think that writes off the fact that he was genuinely gonna, you know what I mean? Like, I think
possible.
That what I'm getting at is that this movie telegraphs nothing. Right? Mm-hmm. Do you think so? No?
He loves being a gangster so much. I don't think being shot at, I would expect him to be more like, I'm going to get healed and I'm going to go get these guys.
I'm just saying the movie is not laying up a bunch of foreshadowing.
No, it does
not. It's not putting up Chekhov's guns and taking them down. That's why you don't know where it's fucking going to go. That's why you're right. Audiences probably did not know if he was going to live or die at the movie end, right?
Right. You expect the movie to end with him falling into the gutter after being shot, saying, "I ain't so tough."
And I think that would have been a great ending.
Yeah. And I think the fact that it goes on gives you an expectation that he might live. Because why have more movie if you're not going to have more movie? Yeah. Because just to twist the knife.
You got to twist the knife into mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sadistic. So sadistic. That false hope. It's so oh man. To go back to the acting too, there's if you take film history class, your film history teacher is going to show you this early motion picture from the 1890s, and it's of a train pulling into a station. And they'll tell you about how people who saw this went running out of the room because they thought they were going to be hit by a train. Yeah. I think people who saw this movie, the acting, they were like, what the this is real. I think that's probably how it felt for people. It's such a sea change from everything that came before. It is so powerful. I can't, I don't feel like I can overstate that.
Some of the reviews I saw of this movie were kind of like, it's another gangster movie. It would just be another gangster movie, but for this performance.
Right.
There's nothing about the story for people who were seeing it that outdid sort of other stories that they had seen. His deliverance of the story is what made this movie special from the beginning, it sounds like.
So much of this, and also Little Caesar, I think more this though, is so influential to like just the history of Hollywood. That you only really see that in retrospect,
Well, and they shit on Jean Harlow, but that was common, I guess. People thought she wasn't a great performer. She was more of a personality than a performer.
Why did you become so obsessed with Jean?
So I went down the rabbit hole to see if she had any relation to Fairuza Balk. I went to go see if there was any relation there, and I just got sucked into reading her whole life story, which was wild.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was like, she died at 26. And then if you list off some of the things that happened to her, in that time, she was married 3 times.
Yes.
She was not formally accused, but people thought she got married and her husband died of what was deemed a suicide 2 months later. But a lot of people seem to think that she did it. And at the very least, it was a part of her lore as this Hollywood starlet.
I have to say, if you read the description of her death, it sure sounds like somebody poisoned her.
Possible, yeah. Then she dated a mobster after that, was definitely in that world because one of these guys, Benjamin Bugsy, moved to Hollywood.
Dated Malone?
No.
Oh.
No. She dated another guy, but when he moved to Hollywood to expand his casino empire, he made her like the informal godmother of his daughter. Like she was just hanging around with him and his daughter, it sounds like.
Yeah, wow.
She was in 34 films, feature films, not including shorts, from 1928 to 1936, an 8-year period.
They worked, man.
And died at 26 from complications related to liver failure, which to me says that she went hard. Now, I know failure can happen for other reasons, but...
Yeah, I mean, that could be. It could have been drugs and alcohol.
In the middle of all of that, she is just like traveling all over the country, selling these Warner, doing appearances for these Warner Brothers movies. I guess they did a competition to see if any like beautician could match her bleach blonde color, and because Howard Hughes had her contract first, and Howard Hughes put on this competition to see if any beautician could match her hair color. And they were offering $10,000 for anyone who could come up with, but she was putting Clorox bleach, ammonia, and soap flakes like into her hair, just like letting it sit there. Yeah.
She may have poisoned herself.
Yeah, she may have poisoned herself in a lot of different ways. So I don't know, it's just, you don't, again, with what we were talking about with this movie, where people don't write these stories about what was going on in the 1930s, but these people were like partying their faces off.
Especially in Hollywood.
Yeah. And there's something about old Hollywood to me that like I really like the aesthetic and I really like the idea of it, but I always feel like I've never had a draw to move to LA because I feel like it would feel like living in darkness. There's something very dark about it.
The sun is like pretty much always shining.
Not literal
the weather is beautiful.
It just
except for the fires.
Feels like an ugly place to like live, but like as a story, as an idea.
New York is shit on LA tonight at 11.
The funny thing is, whenever I visited LA, I just don't really get this feeling. It's more just like watching old movies and learning about old Hollywood. Being in the place doesn't make me feel the things that movies make me feel like I should feel from it. Whereas like being in New York, I feel all the things that the movies told me I should feel.
I see.
I feel much more grounded.
Cinema of New York is a more honest representation of New York than cinema of Hollywood is a honest representation of life in Hollywood.
But I do wish I could walk into one of these studios in the 1930s, and look around for a while.
Hey, you mentioned Harlow, married 3 times before 26. Cagney stayed married to the same lady for 76 years or something like that.
Incredible.
Yeah. Which, is surprising in Hollywood lore. But, you get hooked up with someone before you make money and you're famous. Like, that they're not in it for the bucks. So
that's true.
It's worth keeping them.
Well, it took him a long time to be really secure. Like, even after this movie, he moved back to New York for a stint and thought that he was done with Hollywood.
It could not have been a very long stint because he made 6 movies this year.
Not right after this movie. Sometime after this movie. Yeah, no, not right after this movie.
So what makes this movie, I think, so revolutionary both for its time and in retrospect is just its honesty. I think in large part, Warner Brothers is holding a mirror up to America that America did not want to see, in these movies of the 30s. And that's why they ultimately wound up all getting censored behind the code, right?
Yeah, they shut it down.
There's a great quote from Jack Warner when he bought the rights to I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, which was written by a guy who had escaped from a chain gang in the South. And it's a cool movie. But like, I guess some department head or whatever told Warner that like, we can't make this movie. There'll be riots all over the South. And Jack Warner, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, said, that's why we've got to make it. And it's like, they were very intentionally making political statements and throwing firebombs with their movies. And a lot of that is why they got censored.
Well, clearly people agreed. They loved it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. People all, it would be hard in 1930 in the Depression, in the era of My Forgotten Man, which we'll come to when we get to Gold Diggers, to look around and not say, shit is fucked. America is fucked. Why are you fucked? It would be really hard to do that. And And Warner wasn't afraid to say so. Other studios had a very different tactic there. MGM, Paramount, MGM did like fantasy, escapist cinema. And Paramount was engaged in sort of opulence. Like, you know, here are things that you can look at that, you know, window shopping, if you will, for better times. But Warner's was the grit. And we were talking about the definition of exploitation. Here it is. I mean, this is exploitation cinema. A perfect example.
Yeah, these are movies about you, about things that are happening in your life, in your world, happening now.
Ripped from the headlines. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a time capsule. Like I said, the origins of what we would call film acting, which I feel like are forgotten because I feel like everybody's a goddamned ham these days. I don't know if that's the writers or the actors or what, but I can't handle it.
I always thought it's what people really do like about Meryl a lot. Meryl Streep, if you watch her.
Yeah.
She's she can do a musical. She can get big when it's called for.
Anybody can get big.
Yeah. Well,
big is
so
easy.
Did Cagney. So does Cagney, which I think is what, I know he has a vaudeville background and I know song and dance is his thing, what he was raised on. And I know that I imagine that Footlight Parade, is the example of that. So he can do it.
Because life is comedy.
Right.
Life isn't tragedy. Tragedy is the fiction. Life is comedy. It's a dark comedy, but it's a comedy. And it's so frustrating to me that I think that on just like this one very simple switch, why are people not trying to lighten the mood in a drama?
Oh, I agree. I always have agreed with that.
The worst shit in your life is going on around you and you're still going to crack a fucking joke.
Oh yeah. Have you never had dinner after a funeral? Everybody's laughing most of the time. Like the tension breaks, you start telling stories, and usually people are so kind of raw. I mean, I've never been to a silent post-funeral dinner, even in the most fucked up circumstances. It doesn't go down that way. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people have different experiences, but usually once someone breaks the tension, it turns into story time, laughing, like, or at the very least, like, how messed up is this? I know it's messed up.
Yep. I mean, like, your finances could be in disarray. You could be facing, absolute ruin. Your whatever is going on. You're probably still you're going to make a joke about it. You're probably still going to try to laugh at it. And you don't see that in a movie that is a so-called drama. And it feels false. It doesn't feel honest. It ruins my suspension of disbelief. Mm-hmm. People want to smile even in their worst days. They all want to be cool. They all want to be funny. I don't know. And there is like that bounce to these movies. They're dark as fuck, but they're bouncy. They're light on the feet, baby. Mm-hmm. It just feels real and honest. I got Cagney's obit written by the Kennedy Center here. Or maybe it was
read by Ronald Reagan. Well, not the obit, but him and Ronald Reagan were like good friends.
Which is interesting because Cagney was a pretty outspoken about like civil rights, human rights, and like leftist policies and stuff. Well,
I mean, he basically founded. He was the president of SAG, Screen Actors Guild, for 2 years, and had a big hand in its creation. It sounds like, but
I think Reagan was also involved in the guild too, though, wasn't he?
They were involved in some. I'd have to go back and reread it, in some organization together that they both kind of left on the same night because it wasn't going the way that they wanted.
Oh, that's funny.
But Cagney did sort of, come around to Republican politics in the 80s, it sounds like, before he died.
Yeah. He also founded the Anti-Nazi League in Hollywood.
Which, though, he sponsored it, but it ended up being not what he expected, I guess. So, well, he was, because of that, he was accused of being a communist and kind of denounced them.
Yeah. Well, that sucks. I didn't know that. You said that he grew up as a song and dance vaudevillian.
I thought so. I thought that was kind of his.
That's Blondell. May
I?
Go
ahead. Yeah, please.
James Cagney was born in the tough Yorkville section of Manhattan, which is actually now kind of the Upper East Side. And it was tough. It was a slum. To Cagney Sr., James Cagney Sr. and Carolyn Nelson Cagney. His father was a bartender and amateur boxer. Mm-hmm. Real street people. You know, like this is the genuine, like he lived the life he made movies about. Cagney learned at a young age how to use his fists, and by the time he was 14, he'd earned a reputation for being one of Yorkville's best young fighters. During high school, he worked wrapping packages at Wanamaker's department store, earning $16 a week, and he did one semester at Columbia before withdrawing because of money. He didn't have the money. At the end of World War I, a friend at Wanamaker's informed him of a vaudeville troupe who paid $35 a week. Well, Cagney went to audition, told them he could sing and dance. He couldn't do either. He'd never been on stage. But they must have seen something in him because they like him and they gave him a job in a, I guess, what was it? He was in a chorus of servicemen dressed as girls in the wartime review Every Sailor. Cagney met actress Frances Willard during a play called Pitter Patter in 1921, and they were married a year later and remained together for 64 years. I could do Ben Mankiewicz's job. I could do it. This is all he's doing, guys. He just sits here and he puts a little lilt on it. After years of working in vaudeville and musical shows, Cagney finally got his big break starring on, okay, anyway, whatever. And then we get up to 1929. So he did actually grow up as like a street tough.
Yes. Yeah. I meant his
he came up through vaudeville,
yes,
but he wasn't raised in vaudeville the way a lot of these other people
that is
were.
A distinction,
Blondell
for sure.
was on stage when she was 4 months old.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. No, he came to acting through vaudeville.
He did not follow in his parents' footsteps. He had to carve his own path there.
We'll touch more on him, I'm sure, in Footlight Parade. We've been talking. We talked for almost an hour and 50 minutes on this one. And honestly, there's no piece. It was all about the movie.
It's all about the movie.
We could probably go on for another hour and 50 minutes.
A lot of meat on those 124-minute bones.
It's incredible.
Cagney
it's really
quote, "All I'm trying to get across is realism. The idea that heroes ain't always the perfect gentlemen and bad guys aren't always the stinking blackguards. They can come from the same mold." So many actors of that era were actually politically active. And, you know, just to like put my finger on this, like the Red Scare in Hollywood, it was without merit because it's not illegal to be a communist. It's not without merit because there weren't a bunch of communists in Hollywood making movies.
Yeah.
You know, Edward G. Robinson, like I think he had a hard time working at one point and he ended up having to name names. Like he was a pretty avowed lefty. A lot of people were. There's a whole bunch of writers who got trumped, you know, Doug Trumbo and stuff like that. You know, obviously the Blacklist, the HUAC was bad. I particularly the Lavender Scare, which was mostly just about rooting out homosexuals and LGBTQ people. Who, you know, I mean, that's not a choice. There is a subtlety here that I want to make about communism that would be lost, I think, on a lot of modern, current day, socially conscious lefties, which is that you're still in the era of the Fifth International, I believe, whichever international it is in the 30s. And this is also true in Weimar Germany, which I've been doing a lot of research on. Being a communist in America, being a self-avowed communist at that time, by and large, did not mean I think things should be better. I think we should have a better social safety net. It meant I think we should dissolve the borders of the country I'm in and join the USSR, and we should expand that around the world and exist under this singular international communist umbrella. And that doesn't break until I think Stalin declares communism in one country, and the rest of the world was like, that's not how communism works. That doesn't make sense. And so I do think that there's like a little bit of, I don't know, I guess I get why people who were not of that political stripe would be really freaked out by it. It was really a confrontational position to take. But that doesn't mean that I support the Red Scare. That's all. I'm not a fan of hyperbole. I hate it. And I really don't like simplifying political issues or historical times and places down to very simplistic views. I think everything is extremely nuanced, and we live in a world where that's not allowed. And I reject that notion. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm over it. I'm done with abandoning nuance. I'm going back. I'm bringing nuance back, baby. Bringing it back.
I love it.
Can we be nuanced?
Oh yeah, I think we can be very nuanced.
Let's do it.
I also love nuance. Look,
I pledge to be nuanced for the rest of my days, Meredith.
The only way that I can maintain some of the relationships I have in my life is to accept nuance.
Yeah, right. And then
way.
on TikTok and stuff like that, there's the whole like no contact movement, which is the only logical conclusion if you abandon nuance. Yeah. That's where you're gonna wind up, guys. Yeah. Like there's. Yep, you did see it through. You saw it right through to its logical end. There it is. Good for you.
Agreed. I agree. All right, next week, either Babyface or Gold Diggers of 1933. We are talking about going live with Footlight Parade.
That would be a patron-only thing through the HTD Patreon.
Yeah,
because we can't do it on YouTube. We'll get banned.
Anyway, we'll be live somewhere. We'll let you know where. I'm actually going to put a list of the code in the descriptions of these episodes so y'all can click down there and just see what you're looking out for. This is a pleasure. Thank you for bringing this movie into my life. Yay! And for having an awesome 2-hour conversation about it. Yay! Can't wait for the next one.
Oh, yay.